Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. There shouldn't be a sigh. There shouldn't be a sigh. What is this, 15 days after winning the Europa League, Spurs finally ending their trophy drought. There shouldn't be a sigh. But it's just kind of the weird limbo we're in right now. I've been holding off on this video for as long as possible. Just hoping we had a bit more clarity to kind of go into certain things about. But as of starting this video right now, that clarity is still not quite here yet. You're going to see me occasionally doing that, exactly what I was just doing, glancing down, because quite frankly, at any point in this video, something could happen, or it may come in the next few days. I had to do this video tonight. I think it's been 9 days since the last video, which is kind of unheard of for me. Certainly when I'm not away, when I'm kind of not here, there, and everywhere. I tried to do one at least once a week, if not twice. But this time I've just kind of felt like I know what's going to happen. I'm going to do a video and then something's going to kind of surpass it straight away and make it completely redundant and out of date, which very well may be the case. Simply even in the moments of me uploading it, which takes a good probably hour or so in all to get online, something could have happened. And so I'm going to try to cover as many eventualities as possible in this and discuss them and go into a bit of depth, because I have to do it tonight, because I've got 3-4 days off, which has been long in the calendar waiting for me. It's a little bit of unwinding time. I thought Spurs would have sorted themselves out by now. I did not expect to be heading into this little period of 4 days off with everything still up in the air at Tottenham Hotspur. So yes, there very well could be the scenario that in the next 4 days, during one of my days off, something big happens. Either way, let's be honest, if Ange Postecoglou is to remain the manager of Tottenham, that's a big thing right now. If he is to depart, that is also a big thing. So yes, it could quite easily. Could quite easily. I'm looking down right now because it's something else. No. So I've already read that. Just newcomer to the scene, Christine, the very talented lady who created that, since the Europa League has done a bit of an update, a Europa League winners update for a few people, and I got my own. It's so cool. This time now, looking a bit like Ange. It's kind of got the greyness of the beard going on there as well. So and I love the little on-air sign. It's very cool. So that is going to sit behind me. Hopefully I'm going to knock it over in any moments of overexcitement. But yeah, so I'm going to have the two there. I think it's kind of like a before and after shot. That's before the season started, when I was kind of feeling youthful. And that's at the end of it when I'm absolutely knackered and have greyed. It's just so annoying. It really is so frustrating, because this was meant to be a time of celebration at Tottenham, and maybe even more importantly, a time to start really preparing for a massive season ahead. The return of the Champions League, yay! And all of the excitement that comes with that. The biggest competition in the world, and we know Spurs' squad is not good enough for it right now. It needs improving. So it's like, okay, crack straight on, lads. No, we haven't been able to have this period yet. Despite the fact that, the trophy curse has been smashed. Yay, 17 years in the making. Goodbye. Spurs fans, I think, in an alternate universe, would still be in the kind of dreamland right now. And those within the club would be working away, I suppose, to start shaping the squad to the manager's requirements for an even better campaign to come. All this exciting stuff that you're going to hear at other clubs. But this is Tottenham. Nothing's ever that straightforward. It's just not. And instead of what should have happened, we're in this weird kind of limbo where we're trying to find out what happens next. Spurs have just won their first European title in 41 years, but is that actually enough to save Ange Postecoglou from Daniel Levy's regularly swinging axe, which takes out managers as it goes? I think it's the planning aspect that frustrates me more than anything, is that, other teams are making moves and we can see them doing it. United, Chelsea, City, they've all made kind of signings. Obviously, United are kind of the direct rivals right now. They've just beaten them, Spurs, in a final. They should be on their knees, but they are not. They are making moves and signing players, and Tottenham are just going, oh, that's nice. Oh, how wonderful. Oh, ruddy fantastic that is. and they're just not doing anything. And look, there's no major tournament this season to distract from the market. There's the financial fair play fears of other clubs that Spurs could be capitalising on right now. They've got Champions League football. They can go to players and go, hello, you want to play in that big competition with the fancy music? It's all here. There's so much to kind of bring people to Spurs right now, but yet Tottenham are in this limbo. And there's this kind of... I know there's two distinct views on this right now, and I've noticed it on social media kind of forming in recent days, that there's this kind of one side that probably is more akin to how I feel, this sense of frustration that something that should have been a moment of real excitement and pushing on has kind of just got stuck in this limbo. Then there's the other side, who probably equally angry but in a slightly different way, that maybe that people are making something out of nothing. And I agree with this part, that there is no need for a club to make a statement about man continues job. Absolutely. That's 100% true, that aspect. But the other side to that argument is that, I suppose myself included, the media are stirring up something that doesn't exist. I'm sorry, it does exist. There is this weird impasse at the club. And, to kind of claim that everything's fine, they just haven't told us it's fine because it's fine. It's just, that is essentially that meme of the little character sitting at a table while fire is raging around them in their house. It's not that. It's there is a situation going on in terms of this impasse, this limbo, in that I was well aware by the time I kind of started this video that certainly staff within inside the club, Postecoglou and his staff, there was no awareness of whether they're there next season, whether there is a backing to be continuing this project next season or not. It's not the case that everyone is cracking on and and getting on with things. They can get on with as much as they possibly can. Obviously, a lot of people are on holiday now anyway, but not recruitment and aspects like that. So yeah, there is something that's there, and everyone is waiting for what happens next. It's not something that's been fabricated. It's not something that doesn't exist. There is not this happy kind of thing where Postecoglou and Levy are skipping hand in hand across the beaches of Greece. That's not what's happened. There is this little bit where we await to see what happens next. And there are ways to communicate that someone is staying in their job. It can come out, whether it comes out through the club unofficially, whether it comes out through agents, people connected to the club, connected to the people involved in this, the major players. There are ways it can come out. Trust me, that's how we get stories. That's how it happens. We don't only write stories when an official statement comes out. But it's just really weird. I mean, like the new CEO, Vinay Venkatesham, started on Monday. I just kind of feel like he walked in to Hotspur Way on Monday, and there's lots of people just going, just like paused. I'm exaggerating, of course, but it does feel like a club on pause, that someone has just gone, that Adam Sandler movie Click, like someone has just pressed pause on Spurs for a while. And it's like the worst possible time to pause. It's like, push on, crack on, let's get going. And Daniel Levy did have a holiday after the season ended, but I understand, from what I believe, he's back, and I think back at work as well. Postecoglou is technically still on a holiday, but from what I understand, I think he has come back from Greece now. He is back in the country, but still technically on holiday from work. And like I said, staff in various departments, various people I've spoken to within the club, no idea what comes next. They have quite a strong opinion on what they think is happening next, and then I'll be asked, but what do you think? And it's like, well, that doesn't mean you know exactly what's happening then. I think this is the problem. I think a lot of people are just waiting for the man at the top, the one that controls it all, Mr. Daniel Levy, to kind of just let everyone know what happens next. So everyone can just crack on, I guess, with whatever it is. And I mean, look, in the intervening period, this is why I kind of still had to really do a video. It's not like nothing has happened. That's the crazy thing. There's been quite a bit of change already happening at Tottenham. I just mentioned Venkatesham coming through the doors. But, we've also had Ryan Mason has left. Ryan Mason has headed off to West Brom, his first managerial job, which is great for him. I'm so happy for him that he was able to sign off with a trophy. I mean, he is Tottenham through and through. He has come up through that academy. I love the videos and the photos and everything they did of his kind of journey through the club, and obviously 2 caretaker spells. And West Brom's a great stepping stone job, but that's wrong to say. I mean, a first step as a manager is what I mean to say. He may well stay there and make them into the next superpower of British football. But certainly for him, I was just thinking there's a Martin Jol connection there as well, isn't there? He used to play for West Brom, the old Tottenham manager thing. And I'm fascinated to see which young players he takes to West Brom as well, if at all. Because we all thought about Chris Davies at Birmingham, and it didn't happen, as Guesty pointed out on the podcast earlier today. So Ryan Mason has gone. And I would presume that other members of the coaching staff have probably had opportunities that have arisen in recent weeks with people sensing maybe they're leaving and said, well, I've got a job for you. But they're like, I don't know. I don't know what's happening. That's what I presume is happening. That's kind of what happens in these scenarios in the past. So you've had that. You've had very long-serving executive director Donna Maria Cullen has left, and she's been by Levy's side for its entire time. Almost quarter of a century at the club. So that's a big change as well. And from what I understand, major changes are coming in the medical department, sports science department as well. But I guess we still don't know whether the man that we see all the time, the face of the club. The man who stood in front of an estimated 220,000 Tottenham supporters and declared that season 3 would be better than season 2. We don't know whether he's actually going to be able to fulfil that promise. He does make his declarations. The last one came true. He declared that he always wins trophies the second season, and he did. The players have called upon him fully. They fully support him as well. I guess he turned many of them into winners. So that's going to happen with a lot of them. They're going to have this real affection for him now as well. And like I said, you could easily say he's got 2 years left in his contract. I'm not entirely sure whether it's a straight 2 or 1 and an option for another. Either way, I saw Matt Law from the Telegraph was saying that potentially the compensation figure would be around 4 million, and then I think a £2 million bonus as well. £2 million bonus he would have already got for winning the Europa League. So, potentially 6 million there to just kind of say goodbye. But we'll talk about that in a bit, because that's another part of this that I struggle a little bit with. So some people have said with this 2-year contract left, there's no need to make a statement. Like I said, man comes to job next morning. That's a terrible way of putting it. Man goes to work as usual, I guess. That reminds me of that. I've said this before, but I love it. The Office, the American Office, where Michael Scott is trying to tell the reporter of the local Scranton paper what he should do as the headline. It's like this massive 20-word headline. But that's fine. I get it, no statement thing. I understand that. People keep telling me this as if I've kind of haven't been a journalist for like 20 years now. I'm an old hand at this. I've been covering Spurs for almost 9 years. 9 years. That is why that's like that. You cover Spurs for almost a decade. That's what happens to you. I get it. I get you don't have to do a statement to say someone's continuing. We've been here before with Conte. With Conte, do you remember after his first season, there was a real is he going to stick around, or is he going to do the classic Conte thing of walking out? We had this with Napoli. He's ended up staying at Napoli, hasn't he, after a big thing exactly the same. But there wasn't a big statement that said, Antonio stays. It's just we knew. It came out to us as journalists. We were able to filter that out there. And that's what we kind of need with Postecoglou, if that is going to be what's happening. It could go in the other direction. It's crazy that we don't know this yet, 15 days on from Spurs winning a major trophy again. It's absolutely mad. We need to know either way, whether it is that he's staying on or whether someone else is going to build upon what he's brought with the trophy and everything. We need to know. It just feels so weird. It just feels like all the ticker tape has kind of been swept away a bit now, and the songs from Bilbao have started to fade a little bit, and I kind of feel like it's a missed opportunity from the club to really harness the euphoria of what has happened in recent weeks. It's just this kind of awkward, unnecessary silence that's helping no one. It really isn't. As I said, and I'm probably going to repeat this upteen times, I'm sorry, but this club it's just a walking PR disaster at times. It really is. I would love someone to go in there, and hopefully this is Vinay Venkatesham. He's got his great reputation for kind of the clarity with the outside world from within a club, and maybe that is what Spurs need if they allow it to happen, because they do seem to sometimes take the best moments and just go like and just chuck them away. And it feels like what they've done right now. We should all be having this summer where we're like, yeah, Spurs have won a trophy. Finally, we can crow about it. And we're all just kind of like, yeah, but what's happening now? Oh, what have you done now? It's like watching, your dog do something he really shouldn't be. Like, oh, don't do that. And that's Tottenham. It's like, don't do that, Tottenham. Oh, don't. So yeah. And let's dive into some of the stuff that was kind of touched on very briefly and all of that messy, long opening kind of monologue-y thing. So we've got the change. The change. Sounds like I'm going through the change. The club. There are major changes coming and have begun at the club this summer. They were already going to happen regardless. We kind of touched on some of them there. Obviously, Venkatesham coming in. He started on Monday. He's going to be undertaking major changes, appraisals. He's already got his own person coming in, like an operations manager that he's advertised for as well. I've forgotten the exact title. I wrote about it a couple of weeks ago. There's going to be changes that impact all the key departments really around the first team setup, coaching, medical, sports science. We know even if Postecoglou does stay now, there's going to have to be another coach to replace Ryan Mason. I'm fascinated to see whether they promote from within because you've got Stuart Lewis, terrific young coach that's done wonders with the under-18s. You've got Wayne Burnett with a lot of experience, the under-21s as well. So there's some good kind of coaches within the system, or whether he brings in another one if he were to stay. I hate that. We're having to say if with everything. Only Tottenham can create an if, a what if. So like I said, Venkatesham, I've said this before, so I'm not going to go into it in too much depth, but he's going to bring a lot of positive stuff to Spurs, going off what I've asked or what I've got from people that covered Arsenal, reporters, but also people that have dealt with him and dealt with Arsenal during his time there. He is very good at engaging with supporters. He's very good at bringing clarity to what's going on within a club and why decisions are made. This is the key thing with football clubs. I think we would understand a lot more about decisions if mistakes are made from them or in making them, if they're explained exactly why. Like, oh, okay, I get it. I get where you've come from that, or how you've come from that to that. But with Spurs, we don't know. They make so many decisions and we're kind of just left scratching our heads afterwards because they are a club that just don't talk. They don't communicate. They don't explain. Daniel Levy is a very kind of private guy. We don't hear from him much. The media very rarely get interviews with him. Once in a blue moon, he might do a press conference about something, or we get a little statement. Funny enough, this is the irony. We've had a little kind of quotes from him about both Ryan Mason and Donna Maria Cullen in the last couple of days. And it's like, can you talk about something else? There's a big elephant in the room you're not talking about. But this is just the way the club's been. It's been this very insular thing. And that prevents fans from humanising any of the powers that be, that they just see them as almost caricatures. And I've said it a million times. I would love someone to go in there and shake that up, and hopefully Venkatesham is the man to do that. He's a guy that is definitely very much a finance man, but at Arsenal as a CEO, he surrounded himself by real football knowledge, and like I said, he made a real kind of effort to engage the supporters. And the supporters groups, when he left them a year ago, they very much came out and said how disappointed they were he was going. Can you imagine anyone saying that about various kind of people in the hierarchy at Spurs? It's just because there isn't that relationship, I suppose is the way to put it. So there's him. So Vinay Venkatesham started Monday, and hopefully, at a time when communication is showing how bad it is at Tottenham, this time to shine kind of thing. This is the time we need someone like that to come in and just, if he's allowed to, transform the way Spurs appear to the outside world. Because, as I've said, if there's a PR piece of doo-doo on the pavement to step in, Tottenham will somehow manage to walk into it, even on an empty pavement. They just do. They just do. Elsewhere, we've got the potential return of Fabio Paratici. A lot of people within the club that I speak to are expecting him to return. However, what I would say with him, I know his ban is coming to an end this summer, the 30-month ban for, let's call them irregularities at Juventus. However, from what I understand, looking at kind of stuff from Italy, he is still in the midst of a trial. Him and some of the other members of the hierarchy, or the former hierarchy, Juventus, like Pavel Nedved, Andrea Agnelli. I think that began a fortnight ago. There was a request to annul proceedings, but the Rome Tribunal judge threw that out in April. And I think if I'm not mistaken, it was May the 19th they held the first hearing. So that's still going on. So there's still this kind of civil court case thing going on. And I don't know whether you can appoint him while that's still going on. I don't know aesthetically, or again, PR, how that looks to have someone currently going through a court case. I don't know whether he would just have to remain as a consultant. But the thing with Paratici is he's just had this really close relationship with Levy. He's one of the few people that have kind of, I guess, got Daniel Levy to take a little bit of a step back from some of the decision making. From what I understand, he trusts Paratici in what he does, and that's why really that since his official role ended, he's been doing fair bits of consultancy work for the club in the intervening year or so. And he's a constant presence there. I've said this before, we see him behind us in the press box. It's like, you can just see the kind of awkward look on staff's face when we turn around and go, Fabio's there. And like, sometimes we'll like nod and smile at him and like, hello. He doesn't quite say that, but he nods and smiles. I don't know why I go, hello. That's not the kind of thing. Although everyone that's ever spoken to him says he is this really charismatic guy. Apparently he's a bit of a charmer, is Fabio. We haven't had the chance to speak to him. Again, we expected it when he came in. This is what he did in Italy. He held press conferences. He spoke to Sky Italia ahead of every match, pretty much. Comes to England. Shush, Fabio. Stay there. Go over there. Don't go near that microphone. Don't touch it. That's pretty much what it is. We've never got a chance to speak to him. Just the old transfer raps. I'd love it if he did it in the form of an actual rap. So he was even in Bilbao. He was in the general admission. He's not been there as a guest of the club. When he's at Spurs, he's in a box. I don't know if it's the base one or one next to it. But yeah, in Bilbao, he's in general admission. There was someone took a photo of him with the old earphones on wires thing. He always had the wired earbuds in. Like I said, he's one of the few people to get Levy to kind of take a bit of a step back. And he operated with a bit of freedom, and it's interesting because the thing that he and Venkatesham share is that Levy has coveted them both for quite a long time. I think it was almost a decade that Levy wanted to take Paratici from Juventus, and certainly with Venkatesham, he's been a guy that he's wanted for quite a while. So I wonder, will this be the biggest change we see if Paratici does come back in, but also with Venkatesham, with two people that he really believes in to kind of take on and do stuff? We don't know. We've been here before. We thought this was going to be the case. We thought this with Scott Munn coming in as a new chief football officer role that was kind of more powerful than before. And we kind of thought, oh, here we go. Not really. Another person we haven't been able to hear from, unfortunately. Whereas at previous clubs, he used to speak. I've seen the interviews. I've seen the videos from interviews at Tottenham. No, step back kind of thing. I don't get it. I don't understand it. But there you go. But then I'm in the media. I'm going to want them to talk. Maybe I'm being selfish. And we shall see what certainly Venkatesham and Paratici, if he comes in, what they're able to change, and also what the two men's arrival means for Scott Munn, as I just mentioned, Johan Langer as well. Both of them have only been here since 2023. They've both been quite popular behind the scenes, people you speak to. They both kind of have decent things to say about them on the whole. With Langer, if Paratici comes in, you've got that awkward situation that you had with Steve Hitchen. When Steve Hitchen was there as, I forgot what his final role was. It was something like, I can't remember what it was. I think it had technical in there. Technical sporting director. I can't remember now. But he was there for a little while with Paratici. Didn't really work. Paratici's very hands-on with transfers. I think the role slowly shrunk for Hitchen. He departed. It was about February of that season. Didn't last long. And we'll see with Johan Langer whether, if Paratici comes in, will that work? I would imagine if Paratici is coming in, it's probably not going to be until after the summer. But again, you would imagine he'll be there in some kind of consultancy basis. But unless Spurs are just happy with this scenario and bring him straight in. Spurs have made decisions that maybe don't look great from the outside before. Hello, Super League. So yeah, and then and like I said, Scotland as well. So who knows what the future holds for them? Donna Maria Cullen. Yeah, of course. I was going to kind of talk a little bit more about that. She has been, like I say, one of Levy's trusted allies. Near quarter century. She's been there for a while though, predating his arrival. I think since 1992 she's been at the club. Her role as a director ended on Saturday. I think it went up on Company's House, and she's going to spend the next couple of months handing over a role. Not really someone we see on a kind of a regular basis. Again, maybe more someone behind the scenes at the club. Had a lot to do with certainly Tottenham Hotspur women being built up to where they are. Had a lot to do with the foundation. I think maybe he's had quite an all-encompassing role over recent years. But yeah, personally, just someone that I have seen in passing, said hello to a few times. Did an interview. We did a group interview with her in Orlando, I think it was, on a pre-season tour. We weren't all walking around Disney World together. That's kind of it, really. I think maybe some of the older journalists perhaps know her a bit better when she was kind of more involved in the comms side of things. I don't know. Like I say, I've only been around for 9 years. She's not really something that someone you deal with in your everyday kind of thing. But certainly has been part of this kind of almost like holy trinity, really, at Tottenham. The three that have kind of been the constant. So you've got Daniel Levy, you've got Donna Maria Cullen, obviously now heading off, and you've got Matthew Collicott, who's I've got his exact thing here. His title is Operations and Finance Director. I wonder whether his role will change now. I know there was some will he leave kind of thing, because there was another entry into Company's House on the same day about him. I think, from what I understand, that was maybe more a change of details about him. But from what I understand, there is a potential, I think, for a role change for him with Venkatesham coming in. But we'll see what happens there. So those three have kind of been the main thing. And you've also had Rebecca Capelhorn, who's more about, she's Director of Football Administration and Governance. She kind of sits on various boards for the club. And yeah, it's like it's clues in the title. It's more kind of an administration staff and following rules and doing stuff like that. And I think she's been there for quite a while as well. But yeah, so that's interesting. Whether that trio that has been kind of almost like really the power behind Spurs, I suppose, is kind of is being separated. So whether that has an impact, whether Venkatesham then comes in and replaces Cullen, I don't know. We'll find out. We won't know. We won't know really till we're kind of 6 months, a year into it, kind of what changes have been made. Like I said, big changes in the medical and sports science departments to come as well. We know that's been necessary. I think there needed to be a change. There's a change happening. Clearly, last season it's like, has it really worked? So whether there's going to be more changes there, it seems to be the case. You just keep going till you get it right, I guess. It seems to be the Tottenham way, doesn't it? Keep changing until something works. It kind of like, almost the irony is it kind of has worked because they won a trophy, but maybe they're going to change again. Sorry, just checking the notifications popping up there. Every time, on your phone, you get a little Spurs symbol pops up as a notification. So many times today I've gone and looked at it and it's been like, all right, yeah, that's not. It's about something that really isn't breaking news in any way. And like I said, yeah, Levy spoke. We got little bits about Ryan Mason, which was very nice, and Donna Maria Cullen, which was all very nice, about quite a long bit really about what she'd done at the club. But nothing really for Postecoglou himself. And that's the kind of, as people keep saying whenever they talk about stuff, it's the elephant in the room. He's not the elephant in the room. It's the elephant in the room. I just feel like all this talk of change, it reminds me a little bit. Do you remember when Harry Redknapp was coming towards the end of his time at Tottenham? And Spurs wanted to modernise. They were moving to the training ground, Hotspur Way. They wanted cutting edge everything, and they kind of wanted a cutting edge manager, head coach. They didn't really want this old school kind of Harry Redknapp type, I think. And obviously there was a lot of stuff about the England job at the same time as well. But you kind of got the sense that Levy was like, let's go into this glorious new era with a young coach. And obviously Andre Villas-Boas came along. It kind of feels almost to me a little bit like we're at this kind of stage. We want to make all these changes. We want all of it. Change. And it's almost like, but do you have to? Do you have to change everything? Do you have to kind of, what's the expression? Is it throw the baby out with the bathwater? I can't remember what it is now. It's one for the kids, that one is. Yeah. It just all feels quite familiar to me. And that was pre my reporting days. That was just purely being a fan back in those days. But we're at this stage where it's a little bit different now. I think some Spurs fans back then were a little bit annoyed with Redknapp with maybe flirting with the England job. Look, he was still unfortunate. They finished fourth. It was that ridiculous season. Again, another thing where they've changed the rules after it's impacted Spurs when Spurs finished fourth but didn't get in because of Champions League, Chelsea, all the annoying stuff. And he was kind of unfortunate to... It's mad, isn't it? Sacking people that finished in the top four back then. Now potentially sacking them when they win a trophy. Maybe things haven't changed. But I think maybe the difference now is there's this kind of groundswell of support behind Postecoglou for what he did and, what he's brought to the fans. I'm not saying everyone. Every time I say that, I get people going, oh, I don't want it. And I get that. I'm not saying everyone at all, but I would say it's the majority. And every time I say it's the majority, I get people saying, no, it's not. You're making it up. What I would say is, in answer to that, because you're going to be saying it in the comments right now, I know you are, look online at the online polls. And if you can find me an online poll that has a good amount of people that have voted in it, that doesn't have Postecoglou staying as the overwhelming kind of winner in the poll, I don't know how else to say it. Because I retweeted one. I think it was Billy T did it on Twitter. I saw that and I was like, okay, well, that's a big poll. Let's retweet that. Let's kind of get more views. I think it went up to about 15,000, 16,000 people had done it. And I think it was up to about 80% for Ange to stay. I saw one the other day that was doing the rounds as well, which I think it was three options. I think it was Ange in, Thomas Frank in, or another manager in. And it was something like Postecoglou was almost 70% of the vote, and the others were like in the teens. And so it's like, I get it, and I get that people want to believe that everyone else has their same view, but it seems like, going off polls and going off the kind of, certainly the emotion at the parade as well, and the scenes after the final whistle against Brighton as well, that I think a lot of people generally say, you've won a trophy, all right, you deserve the chance to at least go into next season. But if next season in the Premier League starts the way that this season has been in the Premier League, then thank you very much, but it clearly isn't going to work. I think a lot of people feel that way. That's kind of where I'm at. I think he's earned the right. But yes, if it looks like it's not clicking, even with kind of fully fresh players, new signings and everything, then yeah, and I don't think he could disagree with that either. But I think he deserves a chance to try to build on what he's done with this trophy win. And on his kind of feeling, he believes that he's hit every kind of thing that's been asked of him. 5th place, improved finish in his first season. I know people always say, oh yeah, but the first 10 games were all it was. It wasn't. It wasn't. You don't do well in the first 10 games and the entire season is based on that. I know there were some pants performances after that, and there were some bad moments when some of the injuries kicked in after the Chelsea game and stuff like that. I know that. But you don't finish 5th off of 10 games. You don't finish 5th off a quarter of a season. It doesn't work like that. It helped. It gave them a foundation to kind of put points upon, but it's not what made them finish 5th in the end. And he did all that, obviously, without Harry Kane. He'd lost the club's record goal scorer. And then in his second season, he's got a European trophy and Champions League qualification. So 5th place finish in his first season, improved in the league, second one trophy and Champions League qualification. In the words of Eric Morecambe, Postecoglou has played all the right notes, but not necessarily in the right order. That is absolutely a reference that is not for the kids. I grew up on Morecambe Wise. I actually did. My dad was a Dad was a bit older, obviously older than me, but a bit older than my mum as well by a fair bit, and he loved Morecambe White, so that was a regular in our household. Even though I don't think they were around. Certainly, Eric Morecambe wasn't around much longer after I was born. But yeah, I mean, look, you can't ignore the 17th place in the league. You can't. I don't think anyone's trying to. I think there is an element of context to it, absolutely, with the injuries. That's 3 months, dreadful kind of injuries, and 18-year-old midfielders playing at centre back. That's all there. We've spoken about this endlessly. And we spoke about the prioritising, whether you want to believe it or not, the prioritising of the Europa League. But the players have kind of spoken about it as well and backed that up. But then also there were some really poor performances. It should have been better regardless. And it still always irritates me that the second 11 at Tottenham is just not good enough. It just never is. And you cannot have that going into next season. The second 11 cannot be bad. And I know there's a blend thing, and if you have a second 11, you're making lots of changes, you still need to get the blend right. Spurs need to be better, need to have more options in so many positions. And I've said it before, only 2 managers have got less points in a season the last 58 years, Bill Nicholson and Keith Birkinshaw. And he will no doubt point to them and say, well, they got given a chance and they did all right. And this is the problem, I think. If Postecoglou is sacked at this point, we're always going to have this what if. We're always going to wonder, but what if you'd given him the chance to build on what he did? What could potentially have come next? Where could it have gone? Especially if someone comes in and doesn't build on it. That's just it's such a huge gamble for Levy. There could be a groundswell of thinking that if Daniel Levy makes a change now and a new man comes in and it doesn't work, does that actually make Levy's role as a chairman? I know he owns a big chunk of the club, so he's not kind of going. But in terms of the chairmanship, does that make that very difficult, almost untenable? Because you've changed someone that's finally got what everyone wanted, won a trophy, and brought the Champions League qualification with it, and then it failed. That's a big, big thing. How do you recover from that? And how do, people trust the decision-making after that as well? That's huge. So I do think it's one of his biggest decisions he's ever had to make as Tottenham chairman. It really is. Almost quarter of a century. That's huge, really. And I've said this before as well, but one of the differences between many of the managers that he has sacked over the years is that Postecoglou retains the full backing of the dressing room. They're there. It didn't go unnoticed among them how much he protected them during the season. When they were getting criticism, he kind of took stuff on his own back. There was the odd little kind of moan about a certain player here and there, but on the whole, he didn't really do that. And while a lot of people certain people within the club didn't understand him putting all the eggs in one basket with the Europa League, the players did. They got it. They never lost belief. And he had this assertion that they were going to create history. And he was proved right. So he's your manager. If your manager at work tells you, look, I know this is a bit mad, and I know you're going to wonder why we're doing this, but at the end of it, you're going to get something so special you're going to remember forever. If you're in your workplace and you achieve that something special with that manager, of course you're going to be like, okay, he says things and they happen. Why would I not want him to continue in what he's doing? And that's what I get. It's kind of almost this feeling, I think, with some of the player quotes that have come out since. It's almost like, oh, well, what else are they going to say? They're being asked. They're not going to say, no, we don't want him anymore. But it's not like that. They're speaking so passionately about him as well and the way they want him to continue. And look, he's done a lot for them behind the scenes as well. The whole structure around the players is so different. It was a bit chaotic during the Conte era. I've said this before. There were times when players didn't even know if their day off was going to be the day off the next day. Sometimes they'd be the night before, not entirely knowing what time training was starting the next morning. Just little weird things like that, it was a little bit chaotic. Brilliant manager, but little ways about his kind of organisation around things, he would maybe just kind of leave for others to sort out. Whereas with Postecoglou, there's been so much more structure, I think, to the way it's worked. And he does little things for them as well. We've spoken about it before, the video messages ahead of the final in Bilbao, it's kind of secretly almost getting people to go to their families, just a little handful of people that knew about it, and then delivering this really emotional video to all the players with their families, telling them like how special they are and how proud they are of them. And that was a big part of winning that final, that feeling that they took as they left that team hotel for the game. he does these little things for them, and they respond, and you could see at the parade as well. Again, it's not just people enjoying a parade. There was a genuine affection for him, how kind of long and lasting the hugs were and things like that. And I know there'll be some people that go, oh, he's even analysing hugs. But it's not. You can go up to someone and give them a little hug, but you can. Or you can see some of the hugs there were, like Romero gave him as well, and Maddison talking into his ear and all the time and stuff like that. It is stuff you can look in. We're kind of part of the job that I do as well is reading body language and stuff like that, and you can see it. I've seen many managers around many players. I've seen lots of awkward moments between players and managers, and that's not what's happening right now. Yeah, not at all, not at all. And Pedro Porro has been the latest to come out this week. He did a really good interview with Sid Lowe in the Guardian, there's some more stuff. They've released more stuff from the final, more little videos. I will still watch them. I will still absolutely watch them. Did a really good interview in the Guardian, and he was kind of talking about international stuff, and then I think Sid Lowe tried to get him on Postecoglou and club stuff. He was almost like, I don't know if I should speak about this, but then I think his desire to kind of, I am gonna say my piece, and he said, Postecoglou, him continuing would be good for the dressing room. He's built a very good group, and coaches also need time. In the league, things didn't go well, but he makes you win a trophy. That's important too. The people in the dressing room with weight have to understand that. But as I say, I'm thinking about the national team now. There will be time for that. And so quickly, Sid Lowe said, "Oh, what do you mean? Do you mean the players don't? Some of the players don't understand that?" And Porro very quickly went, "No. No, it's simply just that we're inside. We know more or less how things are. No." I'm not going to lie, it did impact me to see people saying that they were going to sack him, to be honest. I'm very close to him. He's been an important coach for me, and it's thanks to him that I've brought out my best football these 2 years. It's complicated because in football in general, things don't always depend on you, but honestly, in the team, I think, in my opinion, we're happy with him. I thought that was quite interesting that he's just essentially saying, yeah, I get it, we hear you on the outside, but we're in the dressing room. We know what this man has done for us, and I thought that was quite an interesting take as well. I do think there's been a kind of an overlooking of the player aspect of this. And look, I don't think players should drive whether a manager stays or not. I don't think that should be the be-all and end-all. But I do think you have to take into account certain aspects of it and their belief in him, and also how it would affect them if a new manager comes in. There are different aspects to it. And I know there's some people that will say, well, those players shouldn't say anything. They finished 17th in the league. Those players also brought us our first trophy in a long, long time. I don't like when it's kind of really diminished by, the poor side of it in the league. They still did something incredibly special. We're going to remember forever. I'm going to remember that night in Bilbao and that parade, probably above all else now. I really am. I've always said before, the White Hart Lane finale and the night in Amsterdam have always been my favourite moments. Finale is still going to be up there, but I think Amsterdam's been surpassed. It was an incredible football moment. Of course, the football was better that night in terms of the attacking, the goals and everything. But for what I felt at that final whistle, and while I was writing stuff until 5 a.m. that morning, and how I felt at that parade, that was special. That was incredible. Despite it now, it gives me tingles just thinking about it. It really does. Porro actually also said about that, he said that Postecoglou used the variant of the old Alex Ferguson line revealed by Roy Keane of "It's Tottenham, lads." He said it was used. The coach said, yes, we're Tottenham. We have to believe we're a big team. Now people have to respect Tottenham a bit more because they're Europa League champions. The season had been really bad in the Premier League, and winning a European title brought such happiness. The fans had suffered. We had suffered too. But it's not how it starts, it's how it ends. Lovely words from Pedro. I like that. That's very nice. And like I said, the issue comes for Levy in what comes next. Who comes next? Because when he sacked Pochettino, people were very upset. A large chunk of fans were very upset. But he had in his back pocket Jose Mourinho, serial winner, the special one. So you can see it. You can, again, as I said earlier about understanding decisions, while it was incredibly painful at the time, you could see, okay, well, his thought process is, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to get a trophy. Let's get the trophies, lads. There is, of course, an irony. They did not win a trophy. And they finally have. They're going to sack the manager. Or say, they're not. I don't know. We don't know. But they may sack the manager that brought them that. And there was no big reveal there. Absolutely. And I was trying to think about it now. You've had Mourinho come in, you've had Conte come in, you've had the glamour managers. I'm trying to think right now. The 2025 managerial landscape is so different. Probably Inzaghi maybe would have been in a similar vein. Obviously, he's now headed off to the Saudi Pro League for a lot of money. Xavi would maybe be the big name appointment. I would say Xavi would still be a huge risk. His success has come really at Barcelona, a club that he came up through and he understands inside out. Tottenham Hotspur, Barcelona, they're a little bit different. Tottenham Hotspur is this unique and strange beast. It may be that eventually Ryan Mason is the man to tame Tottenham Hotspur. Postecoglou might claim that he's the man who's already tamed it because they won a trophy. But I don't think transplanting Xavi from the cauldron of Barcelona that he knows so well into the very different cauldron of Tottenham with different resources and different resources. Let's stick with resources. Is a definite surefire winning idea. Yeah, it may work. Absolutely, it could work, and he could be a star. But it's a gamble. Again, it's a gamble. And then on from that, the two coaches that are probably most. I know Iraola has been linked as well, of course, from Bournemouth, and there's a bit of a Poch comparison there I can see, but certainly the main focus appears to have been on Thomas Frank and Marco Silva. Again, very good coaches, both very clever, intelligent coaches. I know clever is intelligent. More tactically intelligent as well. But I guess the problem with those two is if you're sacking, I just don't think the fans are going to take sacking a manager who's just got you a trophy for a manager that either finished 10th or 11th in the league. I mean, even Iraola was 9th. I think that creates a big reaction. And I think you run the risk of if the first game of the season doesn't start well, Postecoglou's name's probably going to be sung around the stadium. We had that before with Poch. I remember Poch's name being sung during the Mourinho time. Definitely. And like I said before, you're reviving Spursy. You are. If you sack the person that finally killed Spursy, you're kind of going, like doing CPR on it, and you are bringing it back. And I know not everyone agrees with me, and I understand that 100%. I understand the logic of people's arguments in certain aspects. I just don't personally agree with it. I think he deserves the chance. Thomas Frank I think he's been installed as the bookmaker's favourite. He's the one. I can see why Spurs would look at him. I can see the Johan Langer angle as well. A fellow Dane would understand him inside out. He's kind of used to working within the data-orientated way of creating a football club, which is kind of what Spurs are looking to move towards. So I get that. But, if I'm Postecoglou, I'm saying, I've played with... My team's played against Thomas Frank's teams 4 times. I've won 3 and drawn 1. He hasn't beaten me. All of his tactical acumen and all this that people will come in on this and say, and apparently I'm the Aussie that's got no tactics. I've beaten him 3 times out of 4 and drawn 1. He has not beaten me. So I get that would be a difficult... Silva's different. Silva's got a better kind of head-to-head record if you were going to use that. I think the key thing with Frank and Silva sounds like a couple of crooners. It's Frank and Silva here. They'd both be a safe pair of hands in the Premier League. That's what they are, although I guess Everton fans and Hull fans would probably disagree on Silva. But they've done a very, very good job, both of them, in taking smaller teams, getting them into established Premier League teams in mid-table in the league. You would argue that they've done that without the burden of the expectations that would come at a club like Tottenham or even European football. They have not had packed schedules. And I guess that in itself is an irony, is that the doubts around Postecoglou maybe next season is, can he juggle again having 4 competitions, one of them being the biggest competition of all, and yet you're talking about 2 managers that, Silva's had no experience of managing a team in continental competition at all. Thomas Frank's experience only extends to 10 Europa League qualifying games 10 years ago with Brøndby. So these guys would come in with very little experience of doing that. And some people would rightly say, for all the talk about, what's Postecoglou done? Look at his, where's he managed? If you put Thomas Frank and Marco Silva's CVs alongside Postecoglou's, right now it's not even a contest. Postecoglou is a European title winner, and everywhere he has gone and won stuff. So that's a big kind of ask of the fan base. And look, personally, not a huge fan maybe of I don't know if Marco Silva and Tottenham would be a great fit. I like Thomas Frank a lot. I've sat in a few of his press conferences after Spurs have played Brentford, and I've found him fascinating. I think as a journalist, I would get a lot out of him being a manager, although this feels very disrespectful about talking about another manager when, there is still very much a manager in place and potentially continuing in that role. But yeah, Thomas Frank would be fascinating from a journalistic point of view. Can I see him being the man that takes Tottenham on to greater heights? I don't know. It's a gamble. He may well do. But it feels almost as much of a gamble as Postecoglou, if not maybe more so, because Postecoglou at least has the foundations to build upon what he's already done, whereas any other manager coming in is ripping it up and starting again. They might play the same formation, but it is not the same system, the same tactics. They will need different players. Yeah, and this is what I mean. And in that kind of note, it's costly. It's very costly to make this change. We've already spoken about the potential compensation for Postecoglou, his coaches, and bringing in another coach as well. I think there was some talk about Thomas Frank maybe having like a £9 million release clause. And not only that, but as I've just said, you're then having to kind of rip up the squad a little bit more than you normally would. I know Spurs like to buy young, versatile players that can kind of fit any system, but you're still going to have to change it. People are going to come in and have their very set beliefs on certain players that are now suddenly going to have to go and players that they want to bring in. And yeah, it's a very expensive decision to make. It is. It really is, because if, I don't know, Levy makes it on the idea of, Spurs lost 30 million or so, like I've said before, in finishing 17th compared to 5th in terms of Premier League prize money. Okay, but then you're willing to maybe spend approaching that amount, certainly more if you include the transfer aspect of it, on making a change. So how's that financially kind of counteracting that? Yeah, and also maybe, I don't know, maybe the whole compensation angle, maybe it's slightly cheaper if Ange were to go now compared to in later seasons. I don't know. I don't know, obviously, the ins and outs and details of his contract, but yeah, it just feels like another rebuild, and without any names that I would say incredibly excite me. I said this before, maybe the one out of all the ones that have been mentioned, probably Iraola's the one for me that if they had to make a change, he'd probably be the one that I'd be like, okay. But I tell you what, with Iraola football, that's fast-paced, hamstring-busting football. They're going to have just as many injuries like Bournemouth have had as well. They're not going to change that side of things, and he's going to have to deal with that across 4 competitions as well. So it's just another rebuild. I just don't know if I could take it. Oh my goodness, this could be a very interesting video if a change is made, because I think my brain might be exploding. He wants to stay, Postecoglou. He feels that he can build on this with a little bit of experience in the squad. He can kind of make something quite special. And yeah, it's not like I think he's fearing about his future. Actually, he's made that very clear. He doesn't care about what happens to him. He kind of cares about what he can do for this club. Because look, he's a European champion. The job offers will be there in huge numbers for him. He will be able to stay in the Premier League, I would imagine, if he wants. I would imagine a lot of Premier League clubs will look at him. At the moment someone is kind of got rid of at some point in the coming season, if he wanted to take some time out, there'll be clubs abroad that look at him. And he need only look at Conte, Nuno, Pochettino, Mourinho, just of the recent bunch, to see they all left and won silverware. All of them. He doesn't have to worry about, oh no, you leave Tottenham and it all goes to hell. It does not. If anything, you go there away and you win stuff. But he's been there and won stuff, and that's the difference. He just kind of feels that night in Bilbao that I've just kind of been getting goosebumps about. It's just the beginning, not the end of everything. But I guess Daniel Levy has to decide that. You know, this is it, isn't it? Everyone was waiting to see whether season 3 truly is better than season 2, like he said, or whether, as Postecoglou feared, does the main character get killed off before season 3's even begun. But I feel like the problem is at Tottenham, the main character is always Daniel Levy. He's been the constant. He's been there for 25 years, and ultimately he will decide whether Spurs kind of tried to get back to, I suppose, Premier League comfort, or whether they back a man who dared and did. That's what he did. He told us he'd win a trophy, and he won a trophy. That is literally to dare is to do. You cannot get more of an embodiment of the club's motto than Ange Postecoglou. You just can't. I don't know. Tottenham Hotspur, eh? What other little bits of housekeeping should I do before we go? I've got to go and pack my bags. New kit. We've had the new home kit's been unveiled. I'm going to reserve my judgment until I see it in action. I always find that it looks far better when the players like kicking a ball in it. At the moment, it looks a bit like a training top to me. I don't think it looks distinctly like a really cool top. I quite like the images I've seen, the leaked images or concept images, whatever you want to call it, of the away and third kits. Look very cool. We'll see whether that is the case. But yeah, this it's all right. I'm not entirely sure I'm sold on having the crest down the middle rather than at the side. Kind of feel like it should be over your heart. That's kind of the point. One quite cool thing that the Spurs will have in the Champions League, the Champions League logo, that will say around it in letters, of course it'll be letters, capital letters, UEFA Europa League 2025 winners, which is pretty cool. No other team will be able to have that on their tops, and that'll be cool. What else we got? Oh, I forgot about this actually earlier. Postecoglou did do a little interview while he was out in Greece and on his holiday. It was with ABC News for what's called Australian Stories Game of His Life, which is following up a documentary he did 10 years ago, which actually I remember watching when he first joined to kind of get an idea of what he was about. So he did this little interview, kind of sat on his holiday. There's classic little shots of like him and his wife and children, like looking out across the water. I love it when it was like, look, pensive. And I had him walking, and I could hear him saying to the kids at one point, like, "Oh, at least it's sunny." It's like quite funny little things the microphone was picking up. But anyway, the interview itself, you've probably seen bits and pieces of it. There's some nice stuff in there. He spoke about Spurs. He said, "I had no doubt that for me, the mission when I joined the football club was to win a trophy. It became, well, we've got this opportunity in Europe. What do we do about that? Making the final was, I guess, for me anyway, a real vindication of the road we'd taken. A final of a significant tournament, an opportunity to create history. We're talking about a club who had lost 3 finals in the last 17 years and had made 8 or 9 semi-finals. That's not a great record in big games. There were a lot of nervous people around the club, trust me, who were fearing the worst. Probably our supporters as well. 2 Premier League teams, though, playing together in a European final. It doesn't get any bigger than that, I don't think. This was the one game on the planet that night. The whole world is watching. And of course, they did it. They won it. They ended the drought. And looked back on his appearance on this documentary 10 years ago. And he said, when we sat down 10 years ago and did the initial Australian story, I think maybe even you guys thought that was the culmination of what I was about to achieve. What I do know is that in 10 years' time, if we sit down again, I've got no doubt in my mind that there'll be more stories to tell and there'll be more trophies that have been won. Hopefully they're at Tottenham, I'm sure he'll be thinking as well. He spoke about the noise around him and stuff. He said, it's when I'm at my best because I like pushing through that stuff. It's an opportunity to convince more that I haven't got here by accident. He spoke about his destiny of being in the Premier League. He said, when I was lying in my bed as a 9 or 10-year-old, what were the visions I was having? Premier League was it for me, or the first division back then. It was where I wanted to see myself one day. That was the dream for sure. And he was asked about that comment. The best TV shows, season 3 is always better than season 2. And he said, notice the terminology there as well. He says this as well. He said, I didn't want us to just enjoy the moment. I also wanted us to think about what's next. Don't settle for this. We've got a taste of it now. My players have got a taste for it. The club's got a taste for it. Well, let's make sure we're back here again. My players. It's very clear, kind of possessive, claiming exactly what he wanted to come next. And look, we'll find out in the next few days. Whether I'll be able to do a video probably depends on whether I'm in a fit state to do so after a day in the sun by the pool or the beach or whatever it will be, and whether Mrs. Gold allows me to do it, which is quite right. She's got every right to finally get a few days to relax, to go, no, leave Tottenham alone. We'll see. We'll see whether I'm able to do it or not. Who knows? It could rumble on into next week and I might be back anyway, but I would safely presume that we'll find out what's happening in the next couple of days while I am enjoying some R&R. Yeah, we'll see what happens next. Like I said, this video, by the time you're watching this, could have already dated, and I can only apologise. It's one of those amazing things. In hindsight, if I'd have done it on Monday, it'd have been absolutely fine. But I just kept thinking, oh, we'll find out. No, we'll find out tomorrow. Oh, we'll find out tomorrow. And it just kept going. I'm like, oh, I've kind of got to do it now. I've got no choice. And it could be the daftest time to do it because we might find out something sooner rather than later. But I mean, it would be nice personally if this gets a day or two to breathe, but also it's of no help to anyone in the wider sense. That would be very selfish from me. But yeah, and I would also like to enjoy my holiday without just constantly going, it's not really a holiday. It's like a 3-4 day break. Right, time to go. Hopefully we'll have plenty to talk about on the other side. I shall catch you there. And as always, stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves. I shall catch you later. Goodbye.